My wife 36F and I 34M are approaching our 7th wedding anniversary in just under 2 weeks. We've been a couple for over a decade, and our relationship has been incredibly smooth. No fighting, no breaks, just a steady stream of happiness. For me, it's been nothing short of a dream come true. We've shared countless laughs, taken numerous family trips, watched our businesses grow, worked on yard projects, and raised 2 beautiful young boys. Life has been a thrilling adventure together. Here's a more detailed look at what's been going on. Over the past year, my wife landed a new position at a highly regarded long-term care facility. She was offered a prominent role by her new boss, who she immediately spoke of with admiration. She praised him for his supposed family values, his success, and his unwavering belief in her potential. Initially, everything seemed fine, and I trusted her judgment. But as the months went by, I couldn't shake off a growing sense of suspicion about some of her recent, unusual behaviors. Even though her new role involved attending various out-of-office events, golf outings, fundraisers, and so on, there was something about these activities that struck me as peculiar. My instincts kept telling me that something was wrong, though I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. One night in early June, I was gripped by anxiety as I paced the house, fearing the worst. My wife was out for what she claimed was drinks and dinner with coworkers after a golf tournament. She told me she'd be home in an hour, but that hour passed with no word. Then another hour went by, and still, there was no sign of her. Another hour ticked by, and my worry grew even more intense. We share our locations on our iPhones for safety reasons, mostly because we have 2 young boys and like to keep track of each other's whereabouts. When I checked her location, it was stuck at the side of a busy road, far from where she said she was supposed to be. Her phone went straight to voicemail every time I tried calling. My mind raced with the possibility that she might have been in an accident. Just as I was about to call the police, she finally called me back, saying she was on her way home. I was relieved, but also deeply shaken. I told her how frightened I had been, and she explained that her phone had died, and she was in a coworker's car without a charger. That explanation seemed odd to me. She's never been this late without checking in before. I tried to rationalize it as a result of her new job, her new colleagues, and her attempts to blend into this new social scene. Her story did somewhat add up. The location where her phone died did align with the route to the restaurant they were supposed to be at. Still, her behavior felt so out of character that it left me feeling unsettled and uneasy. Fast forward a few months, and I noticed a drastic change in her habits. She became obsessed with her workouts, her weight, and even started talking about getting breast implants. Her morning routine in the bathroom stretched longer and longer, consuming more and more time. To give some context, my wife is already in incredible shape, much fitter than the average gym goer. She's a knockout, and she really doesn't need to worry about her appearance. But her preoccupation with these physical changes and her increasingly long bathroom sessions made me wonder what was really going on. In early August, my wife threw a casual get-together at our house for her boss and a few coworkers after they all participated in a race together. I had been eagerly looking forward to meeting this so-called extraordinary boss she kept praising. The day arrived, and when her boss and the rest of the group showed up, things took an unexpected turn. Her boss, though significantly older, nearly 60, was still somewhat handsome for his age. But despite his looks, he had an awkward, almost unsettling presence. From the moment he walked through the door, he barely made eye contact with me. When we shook hands, his grip was clammy, and his hand was sweating profusely, which immediately set off alarm bells in my head. It wasn't just his physical demeanor that seemed off. His behavior was equally peculiar. He didn't stay long and hardly interacted with anyone, including my wife. His conversation was minimal. He only managed to ask me which high school I went to, and he did so while looking away, as though he was distracted or uninterested. After drinking just 1 beer, he made a swift exit, leaving an odd impression on me. The evening continued, and soon, the last coworker who was still around invited his girlfriend and her young daughter over. After several drinks and some lively conversation, my wife, ever the social hostess, convinced them to stay for an impromptu dinner party. By the time they left around 8 p.m., the house had seen a fair share of activity and noise. The company finally dispersed, and the house returned to its quiet state. The situation took another strange turn when I considered my wife's plans for the evening. Leading up to this day, she had mentioned going out with a friend to celebrate a birthday later that night. She seemed unsure about going, waffling back and forth. But once her coworker left, she decided to go out after all. She went upstairs to get ready, spending a significant amount of time getting dolled up. When she came down, she looked absolutely stunning. She gave me a quick kiss goodbye and headed out to a bar on the east side of town. Her demeanor struck me as oddly tense and preoccupied. I asked her if she was okay to drive, concerned about her state of mind. She reassured me that she had only had a couple of drinks throughout the day and promised that she wouldn't be out too late. I recall her even suggesting that I should wait up for her. I decided to settle in with a movie, trying to unwind and pass the time. Less than an hour later, I noticed that she hadn't sent me a text to let me know she arrived at the bar safely. This seemed unusual, so I pulled up her location on my iPhone, expecting to see her at the bar she had mentioned. To my utter shock, her location was not where it should have been. Instead, it showed her parked at a building across the street from her office, a building she had never mentioned working in before. I struggled to pinpoint exactly where this building was, but it was clear it was not the usual place she would be. My mind raced with questions. Had she turned back? Was she making an unexpected call? Why was she parked at her office when she had said she was meeting friends on the east side of town? The entire situation seemed illogical and inconsistent with what she had told me. There was no apparent reason for her to be at work at that hour if she was supposedly heading to a social event. When she finally returned home, she greeted me with an overly bright, almost forced smile. The entire visit had lasted no more than an hour. Despite her warm words and the affectionate gesture we shared afterward, I couldn't shake the unsettling thought that she might have been with someone else just minutes before walking through our door. I tried to convince myself that there must be a reasonable explanation, that she had simply stopped at her office for a quick call or some minor errand. In retrospect, I realize how desperately I was trying to avoid facing the uncomfortable reality. But at the time, I wanted to believe the best and overlooked the growing list of inconsistencies. In the weeks following our beach vacation, life seemed to settle into a somewhat normal routine. Our son started attending a summer camp, which happened to be conveniently located on the campus where my wife works. With her new job demanding more of her attention, there were times when she had urgent issues at work, necessitating me to pick up the kids. Sometimes her coworkers, yes, her boss included, would step in to watch them for a short while. It became routine for me to hear about how often her boss would have our kids in his office, giving them snacks and letting them play on his computer. They seemed to develop a bit of a bond with him. My wife frequently spoke about how grateful she was for the support and camaraderie from her new team, which she claimed was like a second family. We had just enjoyed a refreshing week-long getaway to the beach with my wife's family. The days were filled with sun, sand, and fun activities. My wife and I took the kids on bike rides along the shoreline, and we all enjoyed the relaxed pace. The vacation was a much-needed break, but as soon as we returned, we were thrust back into the whirlwind of our busy lives. During our first week back, my wife asked me if I could pick up the kids from their after-school program because she had plans to go out with her coworkers. This request threw me for a loop. It was our eldest son's first day of kindergarten, and we had just come back from a week away. I found it strange that she would prioritize a work outing over being present for such a significant milestone in our son's life. Her response was that one of her female colleagues, who was dealing with a tough divorce, had organized a golf outing followed by dinner and drinks to catch the first preseason football game. What made it even more peculiar was that the plan included the coworker booking a hotel room because she lived far away. My wife mentioned she intended to meet up with her at the hotel before the golf event, given the personal struggles her colleague was going through. I thought it was odd, but kept my feelings to myself. I agreed to pick up the kids so my wife could attend the event. To add to the strangeness, I had to pick up the kids from an after-school program that was located at my wife's workplace. Though I didn't mind the task, it seemed peculiar to have the kids at her office, especially since it was so close to home. I work about 40 minutes away, so leaving my business early to collect the kids, particularly on our first week back from vacation, was inconvenient. The day of our son's first day of kindergarten arrived. We had planned to take photos in the morning to commemorate the occasion. We both took time to get ready and head to the school. My wife seemed unusually rushed, which was surprising given how we had anticipated this day for months. We had talked about it endlessly after preschool ended and throughout our vacation. I even recorded a video of us walking our son to his classroom, capturing the moment he stepped into his new school life. Despite our excitement, my wife was acting oddly detached and hurried, a stark contrast to her usual enthusiasm for family milestones. As we walked back to the house after dropping him off, I struggled to keep up with her pace. Her urgency seemed out of place, especially considering the significance of the day. Once we got home, my wife was quickly in her car and off to work. Her demeanor was frantic, and she appeared frazzled. The whole situation felt off. She was so absorbed in getting to work that she seemed to disregard the emotional importance of our son's first day. It left me feeling unsettled, as if there was something more going on beneath the surface that I couldn't quite grasp. Later that day, I barely managed to wrap up my work in time for the 45-minute drive to pick up the kids. Of course, just my luck. There's a temporary road closure for construction, and heavy unusual traffic on the highway adds to my frustration. As I sit in gridlock, my mind starts racing with anxiety and confusion. This doesn't make any sense, I think to myself. Why would she have me pick up the kids on our eldest son's first day of school? Why isn't she here with us? Doesn't she care about being there for him? I'm starting to panic because this is also their first day at the after-school program, and I know I'm going to be late. I try calling my wife, but she doesn't answer. It's baffling. She knows I'm responsible for picking up the kids. Why would she ignore my call? We're supposed to be in this together, I think, frustration mounting. Then I remember she's supposed to be going to a hotel before heading to the golf event. Am I just being paranoid? I question. Maybe I'm overreacting, but why does this feel so wrong? While stuck in traffic, I pull out my phone again, frustrated with myself for tracking her location so obsessively. Her location shows her at a hotel in the city where we live, which is further from the golf course than I would expect. This can't be good, I think. There's no reason she should be at a hotel with her boss. If she's there, they must be at the bar getting drinks. But why a hotel? I call the after-school program to let them know I'm running late, but they reassure me that the kids are fine and to take my time. As I get closer to the exit for my wife's workplace, where the after-school program is located, I notice my GPS directs me to exit right near the hotel where she is. It feels like a cruel twist of fate. As I approach the exit, I'm already 10 minutes late picking up the kids, and I find myself torn between the urge to continue to the after-school program and the impulse to detour to the hotel to confront my fears. Her location starts moving, indicating she's leaving the hotel. In a panic, I watch as she drives by in the opposite direction from where I'm heading, and I try to catch a glimpse of her car, or her boss's car, which I've seen before. My heart races as I realize I've missed her by a narrow margin. I'm trying to stay on the road and not veer off in my distress. Damn it, I missed her, I think, feeling a mix of frustration and dread. My heart pounds just recalling the moment. If she was at the hotel, she must have been there for an hour. Denial and guilt begin to seep in. I feel awful for tracking her, but I'm struggling to justify it to myself, given the overwhelming emotions I'm experiencing. What is happening to me? I question, feeling lost and conflicted. I finally pick up the kids, now 10 minutes late, still frazzled by my wife's failure to answer her phone and the gnawing worry that something might actually be happening. My anxiety about her absence makes me feel like I'm failing as a father, and I'm terrified for the kids. When she finally calls back, it's after the kids and I are home, eating dinner. I think I had sent her a picture of us having a casual moment together, shirts off and all. Her response is a simple, "Gosh, I love you guys," which does little to reassure me. Before bed, I decide to FaceTime her with the kids, something we don't usually do. I'm hoping that if she's with someone, I'll be able to see who it is. She answers the call, and it looks like they're at a bar. Thankfully, her boss isn't there. Maybe she really was just with her female coworker at the hotel, I think, feeling a slight relief. Then one of my kids asks, "Where is so-and-so?" The guy who gives them snacks at the office. I pan the camera around and, to my dismay, spot him grinning and waving at the kids from the background. After we say goodnight, I put the kids to bed, feeling a deep sense of confusion and betrayal. She comes home about an hour later and is incredibly grateful for everything I've done, picking up the kids, making dinner, and getting them to bed. She showers me with affection, and we end up having an intense, passionate evening together. Despite the physical closeness, I feel emotionally shattered and violated, struggling with a deep sense of betrayal. 3 days later, on a Sunday morning, my wife and I wake up in bed with plans to take the kids hiking for the day. As soon as she stirs, she immediately grabs her phone. I don't think much of it at first. She then heads out for her usual early morning run. I go downstairs, and on a whim, I decide to turn on her iPad, which we often use to play music. I notice that there was an update installed overnight, though I'm not sure if that's relevant. As I open Apple Music to set the mood for the morning, a text message notification pops up, one I hadn't seen before. It's an emoji-laden message from her boss, reading something like, "Good morning, Bae. It's a beautiful day for a run." Without thinking, I tap on it. The message thread reveals that my wife had sent him a text first thing in the morning, right after waking up. My heart sinks as I quickly delete the message. What was I thinking? I ask myself, overwhelmed by fear, distrust, and a sense of violation. When my wife returns from her run, I'm seething with anger but trying to keep it under control. I paraphrase his text to her, and she looks both confused and uneasy. I take her hand and lead her into the dining room, sitting her down and making sure our faces are only inches apart. Me. What's going on between you and your boss? Her. What? Nothing. He's my boss. He's almost 60 years old. She looks like she's seen a ghost, her eyes wide and frantic. Me. We have 2 beautiful boys in the other room. What is happening here? I lay out the details of the text messages, trying to keep my voice steady. Her. Nothing, I swear. Bae is just a term we all use. He and I are in a friendly Apple Watch competition, and I told him I was going for a run. I swear, nothing is going on. I walk away, feeling regretful and conflicted. I wonder if I should have stayed quiet and waited for more incriminating evidence instead of confronting her directly. Part of me wishes I had let the text messages keep coming in, hoping for undeniable proof that wouldn't lie to me. But at the same time, I'm desperate for her to be honest and come clean about whatever's happening. Our drive to the hiking trail is tense and awkward. Her strange behavior is palpable throughout the trip. We complete the hike, a long, quiet trek with the kids, who fall asleep on the ride home. As we head back, I bring up the morning's text message once more. I tell her that it's eating me up inside and that the fact someone texted her first thing on a Sunday morning speaks volumes. She immediately acknowledges that the situation looks bad, clearly having mulled over throughout the day. Despite this, she maintains her denial, insisting nothing inappropriate is happening. Later that night, we discuss the text message again over a bottle of wine. I hoped that the wine might loosen her up and reveal more, but no such luck, just more denials and assurances that she hasn't done anything wrong. The whole ordeal leaves me feeling more unsettled than ever, with the incident at the hotel from the other day still gnawing at me in the back of my mind, almost 3 weeks later. Last Saturday morning, I wake up with a deep, gnawing sense of dread, fueled by unsettling visions of my wife with someone else. This feeling hits hardest on the morning of one of the biggest events my company hosts all year, making it even more difficult to focus. Despite the excitement surrounding the day's activities, the haunting thoughts of infidelity refuse to let go. The incident with the hotel, which has been a constant source of torment for weeks now, has left me in a state of turmoil. My wife takes the kids to the gym, a routine we once shared but now she does on her own, and I head off to work. As I immerse myself in the chaos of setting up for what should be a grand, successful event, my emotions are a whirlwind. I feel a profound sense of disconnection, torn between the responsibilities of work and my desire to be present with my family, to prove that I am not just a workaholic. The inner conflict drives me to make a decision I've been dreading for almost 3 weeks. I call the hotel where my wife was supposedly staying. My heart races as I dial the number, hoping against hope that the information I'm seeking will confirm my fears, that the room was booked by her female coworker. But as the phone rings, my courage falters. The thought of what I might uncover, or worse, what I might not uncover, overwhelms me. I hang up before anyone answers, my hand shaking. I leave the call behind, feeling a mixture of relief and regret, and I force myself to return to work. All the while, my wife is out with the kids, and I'm left with an aching sense of guilt for not rushing back to them, despite the slim chance of making it home in time to see her before bed. Sunday morning rolls around, bringing with it plans to visit her brother's house for a football game. I need to make a brief detour to work to handle some aftermath from the previous day's event. something I rarely do on weekends. My wife heads out for the gym with the kids, planning to pick me up afterwards so we can all head to her brother's together. As I'm packing up, I glance over at her iPad, which seems almost to beckon me. The temptation is almost irresistible. I feel a wave of guilt for considering looking through it, but the overwhelming need to uncover the truth drives me forward. I open the iPad, feeling like an intruder in my own home. She has managed to sign out of iCloud and block incoming texts, which only deepens my suspicion. I navigate to her boss's contact card and discover that she was sharing her location with him intermittently the night before. This discovery only serves to fuel my anxiety. I check her photo stream and find nothing out of the ordinary. But when I scroll to the deleted photos album, my heart pounds with dread. There are several photos of underwear from the day after we returned from our beach vacation and the morning before she went back to work. I can only assume these were sent to her boss because I never received them. This kind of behavior is so far outside her usual boundaries that the reality of their relationship hits me hard. Then I stumble upon what looks like an accidental screenshot of a text conversation with her boss from the day before the hotel incident. The messages discuss plans to meet up for lunch or something similar, sprinkled with affectionate emojis and ending with a message from him. "I've been waiting to see you since last Friday when you left. I'm waiting for you, babe." Additionally, I find a Google search for how to say "one more day" in Spanish, which matches the date of the underwear photos and the day before she returned to work. It's a painful reminder of the flirtatious exchanges we used to have, now evidently shared with someone else. At this point, the truth feels undeniable, and the 2 months of denial and avoidance are gone. I know that my life is on the verge of a profound shift. When I drive to my business, my wife meets me later as planned with the kids. We spend some time together, but I'm in a daze, struggling to come to terms with what I've discovered. She senses that something is off and keeps asking what's wrong. The drive to her brother's house is marked by an uncomfortable silence, as I'm overwhelmed by the realization of what's happening while she sits beside me, visibly anxious about the impending confrontation. In a desperate bid for clarity, I text a business partner who is a top divorce attorney at one of the most respected law firms in the area. He's known for his expertise in divorce cases and may have the guidance I need. He calls me immediately, and I step outside to talk. As I explain my situation in a panicked, fragmented manner, he remains calm and composed. He advises me that the best course of action is to confront my wife directly and lay everything out in the open. According to him, what matters isn't the journey that brought us here, but the path forward and the decisions we make from this point on. After speaking with my attorney, the weight of the conversation begins to settle. We head back home in a strained silence, the tension between us palpable and thick. It feels like we're both bracing for the inevitable confrontation that looms over us. Once home, I manage to get the kids to sleep, each small task feeling more like a monumental effort. The house is quiet, but the silence is heavy with unspoken words and raw emotion. I sit in the kitchen staring at the clock, the minutes ticking away with an agonizing slowness. When my wife finally comes downstairs, I take a deep breath and ask, "Where is our marriage headed?" My voice is calm, but laced with a gravity that makes her visibly tense. I state, with as much conviction as I can muster, that from everything I've learned, it's clear she and her boss have been involved in something that's not just professional. Her reaction is immediate but mixed. She begins to break down, though there are no tears, just a hollow, broken demeanor. She starts by telling me she has felt disconnected from me this summer. I'm incredulous. The issues began in early June, and these incidents have been happening monthly, coinciding with her new relationship with this man. She goes on to say that they've spent time together, but she avoids confirming anything beyond that. I press her with direct questions. "Have you had sex with him?" I ask bluntly. She denies it, but my skepticism only grows. "Has anything happened between you two?" She continues to say no, but I persist. Finally, she admits that they kissed. I let the revelation sink in, struggling with the gravity of it all. "Where did this happen?" I demand. She stumbles, unable to give a straightforward answer, but eventually says it was after work. I press harder. "Were you at a hotel?" I ask. She hesitates before admitting that yes, they were. "Was he there?" I push further. She reluctantly says yes. "Was your coworker there?" I inquire. She answers no. The implication is clear. She and her boss were alone in the hotel. So you went to a hotel with your boss and kissed? I confirm. She agrees, but insists that's all that happened. I'm struggling to reconcile her words with the reality I've come to understand. Adults don't just kiss. They engage in more intimate acts. You didn't go to the hotel just to kiss. She doesn't deny this, but insists that nothing more happened, claiming she couldn't bring herself to go further. The denial feels like a cruel joke, a flimsy cover for what is increasingly clear to me. Our conversation turns into a painful back and forth, devoid of shouting, but filled with the weight of unspoken betrayal. She keeps repeating that she wants me, wants our relationship, and doesn't understand what she was doing. She acknowledges that while there may have been some disconnection between us, it wasn't significant enough to warrant this level of betrayal. We had shared vacations, intimate moments, and built a life together. Then, like a cold, hard slap, a realization hits me with brutal clarity. Wait, you asked me to leave work early to pick up our children from the after-school program at your workplace, so you could leave early and go to a hotel with him, where you planned to have sex. My voice quivers as I recount the sequence of events, highlighting that this was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. I recall her mention of the hotel while we were on vacation, a detail that only reinforces that this was premeditated. The conversation spirals further into a nightmare of disillusionment. The weight of the betrayal is suffocating. The person I thought I knew and loved is revealing a side of herself that's utterly foreign. We go to bed, but it feels more like a punishment. She clings to me, her affection feeling like an unbearable taint. I lie awake for hours, tormented and restless, the emotional weight heavy on my chest. I start searching the internet, desperate for any success stories of couples who have managed to recover from such profound betrayal. But all I find are grim tales of irreparable damage, emphasizing the futility of attempting to repair what's been broken. As dawn approaches, I'm struck by a crushing realization. I've been up all night, paralyzed by shock and confusion. I haven't thought clearly about my next steps or the implications of what's happened. When she wakes and finds me still engrossed in my thoughts, she asks what's wrong. I tell her that I know her car was at the facility where she met her boss. She admitted to meeting him and claimed they only talked in the car, but I can't shake the feeling that there's more she's withholding. This latest detail only deepens the wound and confirms that this affair has been more entrenched and long-standing than she's willing to admit. The realization is devastating, and I'm left grappling with the enormity of the situation and the uncertainty of what comes next. Morning arrives and my wife hops into the shower, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The facade I maintained throughout the night finally crumbles as soon as I sit up. The raw, uncontrollable emotion takes over, and I break down completely. My son's early morning bathroom trip, a small but poignant reminder of our family's innocence, adds to the weight of my despair. I fear he might have heard me, so I quickly wipe my eyes and head toward the bathroom to check on him. For the first time in my life, my knees give way, and I collapse to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. My son, so young and innocent, stands there, unaware of the turmoil surrounding him. His presence, so pure and untainted, pierces through my anguish. How could someone so consumed by their own desires disregard the sanctity of this child's life and our family's well-being for something as meaningless as an affair? The thought devastates me. As I clutch my youngest son, trying to find solace in his small, comforting presence, my other son walks in and sees his father, crumpled and weeping on the floor. The image of them, my precious boys, witnessing my breakdown, drives home the enormity of the betrayal and the catastrophic shift in my life. It is a moment of utter despair, but also one of unexpected comfort. Despite everything, I still have them, and their love feels like a fragile lifeline. I pull myself together as best as I can and head downstairs to make coffee. The routine of making breakfast feels almost surreal, a mundane task in the midst of a crisis. My wife is oblivious to the full extent of what I'm feeling and planning. In the dark hours of the previous night, I had hinted at the possibility of divorce, feeling overwhelmed by the idea that our years together might be reduced to nothing. The thought of dismantling everything we've built is almost unbearable. Breakfast is strained and awkward. We sit together with our children, attempting to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but the weight of the situation hangs over us. Afterward, we share an embrace, holding each other tightly, both of us in tears. She understands the gravity of what's happened. I can see the remorse and desperation in her eyes as she heads off to work with our youngest. I tell her that it would take a miracle to repair this shattered trust. The 10 years we've spent building our life together feel like they've just been obliterated. She insists that she wants nothing more than to salvage our marriage and our family. If there's any hope, she's going to have to pull me from this abyss. I walk my eldest son to school, trying to keep my composure. It takes every ounce of my remaining strength to avoid breaking down again. Watching him run off into the playground, pausing every few steps to check if I'm still there, is a heart-wrenching reminder of how deeply he loves me. The sight of parents arriving together, holding hands, feels like a cruel juxtaposition to my current reality. My life has been turned upside down in the span of just a few hours, and the contrast is almost too much to bear. Amid all this, I remember my wife's recent attempt to address the situation. She mentioned canceling an upcoming business trip to California with her boss, a move she hoped would alleviate some of the tension. She also said she's withdrawing from the program that required her to work closely with him, effectively distancing herself from him in the office. While these actions seem like steps toward repairing the damage, they do little to ease the pain I'm feeling. The thought of separation is more daunting to me than the prospect of continuing in this fractured state. I can't focus, can't work, and can't eat. The enormity of the betrayal and the uncertainty of what comes next weigh heavily on me, leaving me adrift and lost in a sea of anguish.